I really thought every relevant Bleach vs. Naruto matchup had been done to death by this point. With how popular comparing the two series in terms of power is, and Naruto and Ichigo being maybe the most popular manga versus battle ever, I just assumed whatever matchup I covered between the series would have been done 1,000 times by this point. So it shocked me to see that Sasuke vs. Aizen was a matchup almost nobody had covered, with these two being contenders for the most popular characters in their respective manga, and amongst the strongest in each series. It seems like a natural comparison to make between the two verses. For this video, I'll be using adult Sasuke in the Boruto manga before losing his Rinnegan, and Thousand Year Blood War Aizen. There aren't really any notable conditions for this battle. The win conditions for both fighters is just to kill or fully incapacitate the other. And real quick before I start, I would appreciate if you both liked the video and subscribed. If you like either Naruto or Bleach, I'll be making more videos on both series in the future, similar to this one. Now on to the matchup. With any comparison of Naruto and Bleach, it's almost always the most important to establish how the abilities would interact between the two series. Looking at something like Genjutsu works off affecting chakra in the brain, so if it works on people without chakra is questionable and has been a topic of debate for many years. Reason being is that while it is stated it works on affecting chakra in the brain by Jiraiya, the novels imply that MS Genjutsu can be a little different, and there are arguments that visual Genjutsu work differently than this as well. Now, the canonicity of these novels can be argued about, however, I don't want to go into any of this, and what I'm going to do is just equalize the power systems. This is something frequently done when comparing series, especially shonen series. The idea is you equalize similar things like cursed energy, nin, chakra, ki, spirit energy, and so on, so that the verses can more easily interact. Any comparisons between these series already requires many assumptions to make. Even in-series comparisons requires many logical leaps sometimes, so whatever we can do to make less assumptions when comparing these separate series is productive to the conversation. This also isn't being super charitable to Sasuke or anything. Allowing equalization in this regard can benefit Aizen in certain cases as well, but we'll get into that later. What's important right now is that this means Sasuke's Genjutsu would work on Aizen, in the sense that it is possible to use because we're going to say that spirit energy would work similar enough to chakra that Sasuke could cast Genjutsu even if you need chakra for it to work. There are a few things to consider here, however. First off, in Bleach, characters can null abilities via sheer power alone. This is seen when Aizen is able to suppress Soifan's Zanpakuto ability via his Ryatsu. Some argue that this is under Kyoka Suigetsu and is actually an illusion, but there are many such examples of this happening, such as Yoriichi being somewhat resistant to death dealing via power, Kisuke being fully immune to standard death dealing via his strength. While Kisuke is known for many tricks and abilities, Asuka attributes his resistance directly to his strength. And this idea of being able to resist abilities via power fits the general idea of the power system of Bleach. Bleach seems to go with the idea that you can't affect someone with significantly greater Ryatsu at all. This is seen in series with Ichigo failing to even land a scratch on Kenpachi, and he ends up actually being the one getting hurt because Kenpachi is so much stronger. In general, Bleach as a series makes it so that if you gap somebody in power, most things just become irrelevant. It's literally a concept that spacing and distancing in combat becomes irrelevant when one fighter is stronger than the other. All of this to say, Aizen could null Genjutsu if he was significantly stronger than Sasuke. Of course, this hinges on the strength of Aizen, which we will get into later. Another thing to bring up about Sasuke's Genjutsu is it seems that he stops using it in character past a certain point in the series. Past the Kage Summit, he mostly stops using Genjutsu in combat. In the manga, he only uses it on the Biju, and never attempts it outside of this. The fact he doesn't even try it in combat makes it seem unlikely he would even attempt to use it on Aizen. If he does, however, it will depend on the strength difference as to if Aizen can resist it or not. Now, while covering illusions, Aizen of course has his own illusion abilities, that being Kyoka Suigetsu. It's important to go over if Sasuke can actually counter this. Now, meeting the activation conditions for Aizen will be very easy. Simply all you have to do is see his blade, and Aizen has the ability to put you under Kyoka Suigetsu. And because this version of Aizen has fused with his blade, all you have to do is look at Aizen, and he has the ability to activate it. We see examples in series like Uchiha being put under Kyoka Suigetsu after a brief interaction with Aizen, where Aizen was fully restrained throughout the entire interaction. So meeting the activation requirements for Aizen would be quite easy. The real question is, can Sasuke resist or break it in some way? Many people who want to detract from Bleach will say Kyoka Suigetsu is equivalent to a basic level Genjutsu in Naruto, due to it never affecting people who resist mind attacks the same way high level Genjutsu does in Naruto. This, however, just couldn't be more false. Kyoka Suigetsu is far beyond a basic illusion. Even though the descriptions of the mechanics behind it seem similar to basic Genjutsu, it goes far beyond this. Yes, it controls the 5 senses like Genjutsu does, but Kyoka Suigetsu affects your senses on a much deeper level than the description makes it seem. Aizen manages to trick Uchiha using his Kyoka Suigetsu, and Uchiha is able to see endless possible outcomes due to the Almighty, and freely manipulates outcomes. Despite this, he was still unable to see through Aizen's Kyoka, meaning Kyoka managed to affect the perception Uchiha had of every potential outcome, and was not limited to his perception of the current reality they were in. On top of this, Soul Reapers in Bleach aren't physically present. They're actually souls and not physical beings like regular humans in the series are. Despite this, Aizen's Kyoka works on them, meaning it can affect your senses on a spiritual level, further supported by the databook saying it affects the senses of the soul. So while Kyoka affects the 5 senses, it works on a level far beyond just physically tweaking them. With potency of Aizen's illusions explained, now we must cover Sasuke's potential resistance to this. And this is where we get into a massive problem for Sasuke. While Sasuke has incredibly impressive Genjutsu resistance, the way that you resist Genjutsu in Naruto works off countering the control the caster exerts on your chakra. Even though we're equalizing the verses, Kyoka is never said to work off manipulating spirit energy. The only statements about the mechanics behind it is it affects the senses of the soul. This likely means what I mentioned earlier, that it can attack on a spiritual level, and not that it manipulates your spiritual energy to function. Thus, the way Genjutsu is countered in Naruto wouldn't work on the way Kyoka exerts its illusion. For those who think ocular Genjutsu resistance is different, while it is different in some ways, disrupting one's chakra is still listed as the counter to ocular Genjutsu, and it's the way a teammate can wake someone up from ocular Genjutsu. So even though Sasuke has amazing Genjutsu resistance, it wouldn't then apply to being able to resist Kyoka Suigetsu. Now, despite this, Sasuke still has a potential counter to Kyoka Suigetsu. Since the verses are equalized, he could null Kyoka via power the same way Aizen has the capability to potentially null his Genjutsu. Now, this would only work if he is stronger, but in that case, it would be viable. With that, I have now hinged the ability to counter both Kyoka and Genjutsu on who is stronger, so it makes sense now to actually go into the strength of both fighters. Naruto and Bleach both have somewhat similar statements often brought up for scaling the higher tiers of the verse. Both have statements of the final boss type villain, that being Uchiha and Kaguya, being able to destroy a realm or dimension. They are also similar in both being hotly contested. Many people use these feats to say the high tiers of the respective verses are universal, and many push back on this. The comparison of who's stronger requires comparing these two feats, specifically the actual scaling of each statement, the validity of the statements, and how they apply to Aizen or Sasuke. I'll start with Sasuke's scaling first. The first thing to quickly establish is whatever scaling I bring up for the stats of Naruto would directly apply to Sasuke. Naruto and Sasuke are meant to be equals as adults, and we just see them able to fight alongside each other. Neither seems to massively outdo the other, and regardless if you think one is stronger or would beat the other, they would be in the same general tier of stats. Now, without going too deep down the rabbit hole of if Naruto and Sasuke could beat Kaguya as adults, as that could be its own separate video, they're not completely eclipsed by her in terms of power. Naruto's able to clash with her and damage her throughout their fight, and while during the Kaguya fight Sasuke had a very poor performance, he was simply weaker at this point in the series, and Naruto's showings would apply to him as an adult. Thus, both adult Naruto and Sasuke would be able to at least contend with Kaguya. Now, to actually get into the Kaguya statement, this being Kaguya being able to destroy her own time space using the expansive truth-seeking orb, I think the validity of this statement is honestly pretty irrefutable. Team 7 doesn't question Kaguya's ability to do this at all, and the databook confirms Kaguya's ability to destroy her time space twice. The only issue I have with the scaling is if it applies to Naruto and Sasuke. While Naruto and Sasuke can contend with Kaguya, this is with Kaguya normally, and before using the expansive truth-seeking orb, Kaguya absorbed extra chakra. Black Zetsu even notes this makes her exponentially faster and stronger. Even before this amp, Kaguya was already somewhat stronger than Naruto and Sasuke, so Sasuke doesn't have any scaling to the version of Kaguya who is going to destroy her time space. We even see Naruto and Sasuke being massively slower than this amped Kaguya, and they only manage to tag her when she's damaged and put into an extremely disadvantageous position. Now, Kaguya does have have another common argument for scaling to her time spaces that would apply to her normally, and that is that she created the time spaces. I think these statements are also fairly irrefutable. The databook just states this multiple times, and there isn't any contradiction to this idea. The issue I'd have here is Kaguya did create her dimensions, but there isn't any time frame given. Obviously, it's very different if she created them in an instant versus over a decade. Her being able to create these dimensions rather quickly actually seems less likely. The databook that states she creates her dimensions frames her as having free control over said dimensions, meaning using the same ability, she should be able to destroy them. The issue with this is that in series, Kaguya could seemingly only destroy her dimension after amplifying herself, and even then, it had to happen over time. While the exact time frame is unclear, Team 7 were able to make a plan and execute it before the True Seeking Orb even expanded to the point of reaching the ground. So the period of time she was going to destroy this dimension seemed to be rather slow. Using this slower move would be incredibly stupid if she could just destroy the dimension quickly using her ability. Now, this is all pushing back on Sasuke even scaling to Kaguya's time spaces, but even if he does, this doesn't equate him to being universal. The size of Kaguya's dimensions is somewhat vague. I am not the people who claims the dimensions may be tiny, so it's not a feat at all. There are clearly stars in the background, and the idea they are on some kind of plane that isn't a celestial body at all requires more assumptions than it just being a planet they are on. Kaguya's dimensions should bare minimum contain a planet and a star. However, no proof of a wider universe like our own world exists. Only the video games show a larger cosmology, and these are not shown to be canon. So even just assuming Sasuke as an adult scales over Kaguya's eternal True-Seeking Orb due to fighting people you think are much stronger and just getting stronger himself, this wouldn't get Sasuke anywhere near universal. What it would scale him to is more akin to a solar system of sorts. I don't want to go too deep into what you consider solar system level, just know that when I say solar system here, I'm referring to Kaguya's realms having at least a planet and star in it. Now, looking at Aizen's scaling, I have to start by scaling Aizen to Uchiha before getting into Uchiha's feat. Aizen is definitely weaker than Uchiha, but he's still able to somewhat contend with him, being able to slash away attacks from him. This is a similar situation to Naruto being able to somewhat contend with Kaguya. Aizen is shown to be weaker than Uchiha, but isn't completely eclipsed in power. Now, getting to Uchiha himself, the scaling for Uchiha in question is the several statements of him being able to destroy the living world, Soul Society, and Waco Mundo. This has been a point of controversy since it came out, with if it makes Uchiha and other Bleach high tiers universal being one of the biggest debates in online scaling spaces. I, however, don't really get this, as the arguments against these statements making Uchiha universal are quite weak. This doesn't have the issue of Uchiha destroying a realm of vague size like Kaguya had. One of the realms he's destroying here is the actual living world. Of course, some people still try to be hyper-skeptic even to this, like questioning if the Bleach universe is the size of the real one, or if Uchiha was only going to destroy the Earth. But neither of these arguments are very good. Unless there is reason to question something being different than the real world, we tend to assume it's similar. We wouldn't randomly assume something like gravity doesn't exist or is wildly different in Bleach, unless we have reason to believe it. In Bleach, we even see numerous stars in the sky and the moon, so clearly a larger cosmology exists. As for the argument of only destroying the Earth, this just isn't what the statements say. These statements never reference planets in it. It would also be hilarious if Uchiha, who is supposedly trying to destroy all three realms and make a new one, is just destroying the Earth for whatever reason in the living world, especially considering he's going to destroy Waco Mundo, which is unambiguously referring to the entire realm, as there isn't a smaller piece of the realm that saying Waco Mundo could even potentially be referring to. Uchiha being this strong is also now made more consistent via the 1000-Year Blood War anime, with Senjomaru, who is nothing compared to full power Uchiha, being able to shake all three realms by just exerting her power. This of course isn't the same as destroying the realms, but she is doing this unintentionally and isn't even trying to destroy the realms. On top of this, Uchiha eclipses her massively in power by the end of the manga. And for those who wonder, yes, the 1000-Year Blood War anime is almost certainly canon. Kubo was heavily involved in the anime version of 1000-Year Blood War, saying he views this as more so his true vision. And we know the manga version of 1000-Year Blood War had some issues of being rushed, both due to deadlines and Kubo's health at the time. So added scenes and changes in the 1000-Year Blood War anime should be fine, as it's likely Kubo intended for these changes or additions to be made. Overall, Uchiha, and by extension Aizen being universal is highly consistent. And as said earlier, even just assuming Sasuke scales to the eternal truth-seeking orb, Sasuke would only be around solar system level. A power gap this massive is obviously a problem in any fight, but as I said earlier, Sasuke's only real counter to Kyoka Suigetsu would be negating it via power, and being this much weaker, that isn't viable. So not only is Sasuke incomprehensibly weaker, but he would be under Aizen's illusion whenever Aizen chooses to activate it. And Sasuke's Genjutsu could just be negated by Aizen's massively greater power. None of Sasuke's abilities that may be able to alleviate a power difference normally would even work here. Aizen could just null all of them, similarly to Soifan's ability completely failing on him, and he would tank all of Sasuke's attacks just like Kenpachi did to Ichigo. Even if Sasuke somehow damages Aizen, Aizen has both regeneration and a form of immortality due to the Hogyoku. Even when Ichigo, who literally transcended him in terms of power at the time, nearly cut him in half, he just proceeded to heal through it anyways. The only reason Aizen even lost was because he had a secret desire to try and lose the fight. It's stated otherwise the Hogyoku makes him near impossible to kill. Even with him kind of throwing the fight, Aizen just got sealed away and couldn't be killed. And even the seal couldn't fully restrain Aizen. So Sasuke truly has no way to put down Aizen, even if he could affect him somewhat. On the other hand, Aizen could just one-shot Sasuke with a single hit. The only other factor that could potentially be relevant is speed. I say potentially because Sasuke has no way to even harm or affect Aizen. So even if Sasuke is moving so fast, it's like Aizen is standing still next to him, there's nothing you could even do. I won't go too in depth here because as I said, it won't change much, but both Naruto and Bleach characters massively surpass the speed of light by the end of the series. Naruto has numerous attacks stated to be light speed like the Laser Circus and Light Fang, and Sasuke surpasses both of these attacks in his adult form. Similarly, Bleach has numerous light speed attacks like Seros and the Dagashian that Aizen surpasses even early in the series. I'm not putting a specific number on the amount either is above the speed of light. You can try and add multipliers of things like the gates for Naruto and the various releases in Bleach to get the characters into hundreds of times the speed of light, but I'm not going to open that can of worms in this video as it just isn't very relevant. Both characters surpass the speed of light clearly, and you can argue both to be many times the speed of light. Even if you think Sasuke is faster to some level, he has literally no ability to affect Aizen. I just wanted to at least mention speed so it didn't seem like I forgot to even mention it. The way this would go down, even being as charitable to Sasuke as possible, so saying he's faster than Aizen and could somehow do some damage, is Aizen can heal through all damage Sasuke inflicts and null whatever attacks he attempts to use, and landing a single hit would be enough to kill Sasuke instantly. On top of this, Sasuke would likely be put under Kyoka Suigetsu almost instantly, so even if Sasuke is faster, Aizen can just use his illusion to help land a hit. Overall, Sasuke just has nothing for Aizen here, and Aizen would win this very easily.